Hello, everyone. In this session, we're going to look at the practice assessment one from the AATAq website for introduction to bookkeeping. That's one of the level 2 AAT paper, and that's for AQA 2022. This paper we used to call bookkeeping transaction, but now they called it introduction to bookkeeping. The structure of the question we can see here. We have 1.5 hours, so 1 hour 30 minutes. We have to answer 11 tasks. So 11 questions need to answer in order to pass this exam. Every question is mandatory, so you have to answer every single question. So you should attempt complete every task. The rest of the information, just to understand how you do the exam. For example, you cannot use the comma when you try to put the decimal. So you need to read this one carefully. This information is same for every single AAT exam. So any AAT exam will do. Most of the information is same, except how many tasks you're going to answer on this assessment, and also how long it will be, and how many marks you're going to answer. So for this question, we have 100 marks. On the scenario, it says a little bit about the scenario. They said the business use a variety bookkeeping system. A double entry take place in general ledger. This information is a little bit important. Double entry take place in general ledger. So we know we have a subsidiary ledger and we have a GL, general ledger. That means if we have taken the general ledger in the double entry, so there are a few changes or a few adjustment that we do on the cash book and the petty cash book. So the cash book and the petty cash book can be a part of double entry and cannot be a part of double entry. So it can be a general ledger and it can be a book of prime entry. So we need to look at careful. If the question said we already have a bank. So if you have a bank, then if you take the bank as a part of the general ledger, then the petty cash or the cash book is not part of the double entry system. So if you read that chapter, you already know that. If you don't know, you need to make sure you read again where it says the petty cash and the cash book can be the part of double entry system, and sometimes it says cannot be. So you need to read the explanation there. The reason is if you already maintain the GL for the bank, you really don't have to look at the book of prime entry. The VAT rate is 20%. So for the whole exam, we're going to assume the VAT rate is 20%. So every single question, they don't have to mention how much is the VAT rate because the question already said at the beginning, the VAT rate is 20%. All right, so that's it. Let's move on to our question. The first question we have here for 10 marks. This task is about manual and digital bookkeeping system. This task contains part A to B. Identify which documents or report would be used for each of the purpose below. To summarize income and expense and report performance in an accounting period. So to summarize the income and expense, you have to be very careful with this word. Income and expense is always relevant with the profit and loss account. Because on the profit and loss account, we need to find it out how much is my total income and how much is my total expense. And income minus expense is basically the profit. And that shows the performance in the accounting period. So how much profit I make for this accounting period, I have to look at the income and expense and find the difference, and that will tell us how much is the profit. So that is linked with our profit and loss account. So we say the statement of profit and loss. The next one is says to check that total amount of debit entries in the bookkeeping system equal to the total amount of credit. So you already know that. So if we have a debit and credit, if we like to check the arithmetical accuracy, the debit is equal to the credit, we called it trial balance. If you remember your trial balance, you know how you make the trial balance. First, we make the GL. So GL represent the general ledger. For example, the bank, for example, the receivables, for example, sales, For example, purchase. So all this general ledger. After that, we look at our balance BD. So all the balance BD later on we transfer to the trial balance. And once we transfer all these balances, then my debit side of the trial balance should equal to the credit side. So if it is matched, then we understand the double entry has been taken place correctly. So this is the thing we have to remember. So trial balance, the next one we have here to summarize the asset, liability, and the capital. This is the accounting equation, and this is linked with our financial statement. If you look at this three words, asset, liabilities, and capital, that represent our statement of financial position, SOFP. Statement of financial position represent asset equal liability plus capital. Asset equal liability plus capital. So if I add the liability and capital, it will be equal to the asset. Sometimes you can show this way, asset, liability, capital. So if I added these two, for example, if my liability is 10, if my capital is 10, then my asset will be 20. Now, in the exam, they might give you only two. You have to find the third one. For example, if the question said the asset is 20 and we don't know the capital and the liability is 10, how much is the capital? So this minus this is your capital, or this minus this is your liability, and this plus this is your asset. So accounting equation, asset equal liability plus capital represent on the statement of financial position. The next one we have here to remind the customers of amount outstanding and request payment. That is a statement of account. Statement of account. Statement of account represent how much money is still outstanding for how many invoice from the customer. Statement of account. Statement of account is basically like a bank statement, normally sent at the end of the month by the supplier to the customer. So basically the supplier tell at the end of the month, for example, that was the opening balance. Then after that, you order more invoice, then make a payment, and at the end of the month, the balance is 5,000 due. So that means whole statement you can look at, and if you see is there any invoice is missing, you can always check with the supplier. Or if you made any payment, it's not on the statement of account, you can always double check with your supplier, but a statement of account balance shows how much you still need to pay. All right, the next one we have here is say the product code for a range of cloth. Follow the format below. Now this question will be always in the exam for 2 marks. Quite easy, just need to follow the instruction. First two letter of the product color, first two letter of the product type, a sequential number for each product. So create a product code for each of the two new product. So you can see the first one, they already give it to us, blue jacket. So from the color, I take 2 BL, and from the product jacket, I took JA, so BLJA. And they said after that, follow the number. So we have 106, the next one will be 107, then 108. So let's try this one, brown shirt. So I'll take BR and ash H 107. And the next one will be REWA, then 108. I think that's it. The next one we have here, identify whether each of the following statement regarding manual bookkeeping system are true or false. Okay, a petty cash book always book of prime entry. That's not true. Remember that petty cash book can be a book of prime entry, it cannot be a book of prime entry, but never part of the double entry bookkeeping system. That's not true. So you need to make sure you read the petty cash book in detail. What is it? How does it work? So petty cash book can be both. So that's false. A cash book is not part of the double entry bookkeeping system if there is a bank account in the general ledger. That's true. So for example, if you already have the bank account on the GL, and if you take the cash book as well, so it's going to be double, because in the cash book, you have a 2 column, one for the cash and one for the bank. So you need to make sure, like, if you already have the bank, then cash book is not part of the double entry bookkeeping system. So that's true. Complete the following statement about the digital bookkeeping system by selecting the appropriate option in each gap below. Now, digital bookkeeping system means when you use the software to do your debit and credit. For example, if you use the Xero, or if you use the QuickBook, or any other system you use to do your bookkeeping. So digital bookkeeping system will prevent, no, it's never prevent. Remember that you can still make a mistake even if you use a software. So it will reduce the error because it will show you some sort of warning if you, for example, if you already enter one invoice number 100, and if you try to make another invoice 100, it will give you a warning. If there is a duplicate of the transaction, you might find on the report, or you can check like how many transactions showing the same figure, but it will not stop you because you might have a few cells on the same figure. For example, you make a cells 1000, then again 1000, then again 1000. Not necessarily software will tell you like, oh, you already have 1000, you cannot put another 1000. So it will reduce the error, but will not prevent the duplication of error. No, it will not prevent the duplication of the error because you can still have the same figure, you can always enter. All right, so that's the first one. Let's move to the next one. The next one we have here is says, this task is about principle of double entry bookkeeping. This task contain part A to see the following account or bookkeeping system. So plant and machinery, identify the classification of each. Plant and machinery. Plant and machinery is all about the asset. So this is our asset. Wages and salaries is expense. So anything belongs to profit and loss account, remember it is our expense. So wages and salary we pay to our employees. So this is our expense. A loan from the bank is a liability because if I take a loan from the bank, then we have to pay it back. So it's our liability. And you need to make sure you are very much good with your debit and credit. If you don't know the debit and credit, you will be stuck in everywhere. So I have a video for the debit and credit understanding. Make sure you have a look at that if you still don't know how to identify what is debit and what is credit. Then you have a commission received is the income. All right, the next one we have here, the asset account total 159,772 and the capital show balance 100,652. The question is asking how much is the liability. If you remember our accounting equation, A is in the top, L and C. So they give us the A, that is 159,772. They give us the capital, that is 100,652. They're asking how much is the capital. That's simple because L plus C equal to A. So that means if I want to find the L, I will minus from asset from the capital. So that will give me how much is the liability. If we remember this formula, it's going to be very easy for us to always identify how much it is. So 159,772 minus 100,652, that will give us 59,120. The next one is says the transaction below have been entered in the bookkeeping system. Identify the dual effect of each transaction by dragging the appropriate. So you have to find it out what's happening. That's a very important question, and you need to understand actually how the debit and credit work. Purchase a motor vehicle on credit. Now let's try to understand one. So purchase of motor vehicle. So if I buy a motor vehicle, so motor vehicle is asset. So asset is coming to the business. On credit means I say to my supplier, I will pay you later. So if I pay you later, that's create a liability. So asset is increasing because I'm buying a motor vehicle. So motor vehicle coming to the business. So asset is increasing. At the same times, I buy on credit, I buy on loan. So liability also increasing. So both asset and the liability is increasing. So it's a increase both asset and liability. That's the first one. Repaid a loan in cash. So loan is a liability. If I pay the loan, so liabilities goes down, and I paid in cash. That means my asset also go down because cash is asset. So cash is going down and also liability is going down. So that means asset is decreasing, liability is decreasing. So both decrease. So decrease both asset and liability. My liability is going down because my loan will be now less, and my asset will be going down because my cash will go down if I pay the loan by cash. Sold surplus office equipment for cash. So if I sell something, equipment is an asset for cash. So cash will come to the business. So if the cash is coming, it will increase my asset. At the same time, the equipment is my asset, and this asset will be gone from me. So this will be my asset also. So for example, one asset is going, another asset is coming. Which asset is going here? Office equipment. And which asset is coming? The cash is coming. So cash is the asset. So both increase and decrease of asset. The next one, receive a bank deposit from the owner. Remember that bank deposit always capital and it is asset for the business. So both increase and asset and capital, because if the owner brings some money in the business, so bank will go up, money will be in the bank, so asset will go up. At the same time, his capital will be also increase. Paid a credit supplier using a bank overdraft. Bank overdraft is a liability. So if you pay credit supplier by using the overdraft, so you paying to the supplier, so your liability will be reduced because your supplier is your liability. One liability will be reduced, but you are paying by using the bank overdraft. That means your another liability will increase. So both liability will increase and decrease. So both, where is both liability? Both increase and decrease a liability. This one, because one liability is decreasing because of my supplier, another liability is increasing because I'm taking the overdraft for that. So very careful with this thing, and not only for the exam, you have to understand how the debit and credit work. The next thing we have here, that's for the 10 marks question, task 3. This task is about processing customer invoice or credit note entering in the daybook. So let's have a look. So this task contains part A to C. A sales invoice is being processed from the delivery note below. The customer benefit from a 3% bulk discount. All right. So we have a supplier name, PTT Limited. Supplier is always on the top. And then to Bates Limited. Bates Limited is our customer. How many unit? 2,500. Product code G996. Price before discount 1.15 per unit plus VAT is 20%. Okay, amount before the discount, quite simple. So 2,500 multiply 1.15. So that should give us the price before discount. That is 2,875. Then you have a bulk discount, that's 3%. So the bulk discount will be 86.25. So 3% of 2,875. After their discount, so 2,875 minus 86.25, that will give us 2,788.75, and the VAT is 20% on this amount after the discount amount. That is 20% will give us 557.75, and if we added the net and the VAT, that will give us total 3,346.50. That's quite simple, just need a little bit calculation. The next one we have here, say identify the day book in which the invoice will be entered. Now first we need to look at the story what's happening. A sales invoice. Sales invoice means I made a sales. So that means it is a sales invoice. And if I make a sales, it will be always going to the sales day book. If I buy something, if I receive the invoice from the supplier, then it will go to the purchase day book. So you need to be careful. So if I sell, then I'm sending the invoice to my customer. That means it is a sales invoice. Sales invoice always goes to sales day book. But if I receive the invoice from the supplier, that means I made a purchase. That will be the purchase daybook. So here it will be sales daybook because I sent this a sales invoice is being prepared for delivery note. All right, so the next one is says complete the entry daybook. That's quite simple, just to complete. I don't know how come it's 4 marks, but it's very simple just to copy. So we have here total 3346. 3346.50. VAT we have 557.75. Net 2788.75. And what product it was? G996. So G996, that is the net again, 2788.75. Remember that always show the net figure because the VAT is for the HMRC, not for the company. All right, let's move to the next one. The next one is says here, this task is about processing a receipt from the customer. This task contains part A to C. BCK Limited has received a check for 1434.16 from a Print PLC in full settlement of the two invoice and the credit note. Okay, so we have a two invoice. So you can see here, that's our first invoice total, and that's our first another invoice, invoice number 2, and that's the credit note. So 130. So credit note 129. So very simple. You need to add this 2 and minus this 1. And we have to see how much you need to pay. All right, complete the following statement about the accuracy of the amount received by the selecting appropriate option in the gap. Okay, so if I added this to 609.84 plus 864 minus 130.68. So how much is here? How much are you expecting from that customer? So 609.84 plus 864 minus 130.68, and that gives me 1343.16. But customer paid me 1434. So it's look like they paid me £100 more, isn't it? I'm expecting 1343, but they paid me 1434. So what happened? So Payne PLC has overpaid the owing amount, so they are paying me more than they're supposed to, and I should refund. A refund should be offered. That's it. The next one we have here, that is the next section. So Chase PLC offered a customer 2% discount for payment of all outstanding invoice. Detail below by the end of the week. Okay, calculate the amount that should be paid at the end of the week to settle. All right, each invoice, the total of all invoice. All right, so let's have a look how much it would be here. 2% less. So it's quite simple. So if I have the first one, 1590, so 1590, and I have to minus 2%. Do not do it the net or VAT. Always give the discount on the total amount. Remember that. If there is a discount, that is settlement discount, this is always on the total amount. So if you see the prom discount or settlement discount, always on the total amount. But if you see the trade discount or the bulk discount, remember that is always on the net. You have to be careful. So if it is a settlement discount or prom discount, it's on the total. If there is a trade discount or bulk discount, is always on the net. So 1590, I can minus 2% from 1590. So we can do times 2%, and if I minus that, it will give me how much it is. But I do a little bit quicker way. So we do 1590 times 98%. Because 2% is the discount, 98% we have to pay. So that will make the work a little bit faster on your calculator. Rather than minus 2%, then you minus from the gross, it will take some time. So if you do 1590 times 98%, because 2% is the discount, it will give you the same figure. But you can do the way you're comfortable. So 1558.20. The next one again, 354 times by 98%. That will give us 346.92. Then we have 564 times 98%, so 552.72. And if we added all of this, 2457.84. All right, that's it. The next one we have here, the company policy is to allocate any underpayment as a part payment to query any overpayment. Allocate the amount received in the customer report by selecting the appropriate action to take for each section or each transaction. Okay, so allocate the amount received in the customer report below selecting appropriate action for each transaction. So you have opening balance. The question said company policy is to allocate any underpayment as a part payment and to query for overpayment. So if there is any underpayment, if we see any underpayment, then we say it's a part payment. If we see overpayment, we will choose the query. So we want to inquire why the overpaid. The first one we can see is a amount for 447.60. And on the invoice, we can see, because they paid 1610.80. So Veta Limited received a check 1610 and the remittance advice. Remittance advice, basically the customer tell to the supplier that I paid 1610 and 80 pence, and this is the breakdown of that. So they try to explain to you why he paid 1610 pounds, so that the supplier knows why he paid 1610 and 80 pence, and he knows which invoice is included, which credit note he minus. So we can see here 1610.80. Now the first one, opening balance, I can see 44760. So we don't see anyone here 44760, but we can see the invoice we have 146 and 1050. So we don't have this invoice here. That means this is the opening to invoice we had at the beginning of the month. So if we added this to 14160 plus 306, this is exactly 44760. That means the first payment he make this to invoice, that was the opening, it was due from the last month, because that exactly matched the opening balance, so balance BD. So we said this is already paid, so this is paid, so this invoice paid is allocate full amount, so this one is paid. The next one we can see for invoice number 1059 and 1059, the invoice was due 47740, but he paid 474. It's supposed to be 477, but he paid 474. So he paid likely to be less. So it's underpayment. If there is underpayment, the question said write as a part payment. So it's a part payment because it's underpayment. The next invoice we can see says 1062,688.80, and we have here 68. So our invoice we have here 83880, but we have one credit note. You see overcharge. So that means you have to find the difference. So 838.80 minus 150. And that gives me 688.80. So that means this payment for 1060 invoice, because we have to always minus the credit note, always careful with that. So we can say this is also completely allocate. So full allocate, full allocate. So we can fully allocate all of this. All right, so I hope like you understand what you explained. Maybe we'll make another video for the complete the question to make it. There's 11 question here, so 11 tasks actually. So hopefully on the next video I'll try to explain to the more question from this practice assessment. Thank you very much everyone for watching.